guys. Thanks for coming up close and being right near with. Yeah, appreciate it. See if I can see my notes here. Hey, so I'm doing this for a nonprofit, but I think that what I really want to talk to you guys about is no matter what your role is, where you are in the a vendor or a client or whatever it is, that we are all kind of representatives or ambassadors for digital change, for digital transformation. And so we're all leaders in that. And that even if you have a very specific role or a very specific industry, it's really all about digital transformation. So where's my clicker here? Here we go. Okay, so I am at a nonprofit now, but I've only done this for a year and a half. It's kind of a nonprofit that I've been passionate for my whole adult life, called Young Life. Some of you we've talked about it, some of you know about it. It's a mentorship organization for adolescents. It's got a faith component to it, but it's really 50 states, 100 countries. Its intention, especially in these complicated times, is just walk alongside young people. And young people are Generation Z, they're digital natives. And so for this 80-year-old organization, it really needs to rethink everything. But in my career, I've done that for other organizations. I started my career with Merck, a big multinational pharmaceutical company. I was doing software to help them to automate their manufacturing processes. I then I did a startup that I self-funded myself, an agency to help folks take control of their social media. It's still alive today. I'm kind of like Morgan. I get to give the professionals the company to run it after I have left. And then Timely Care is more recently a Mars shot startup that happened in COVID, where we built a telehealth for college kids app that is now in 250 universities as a mental health and medical health app. So lots of different organizations I've been able to navigate as a digital transformation professional. And so that's a little bit of what we'll talk about today. I also live in Austin, as you guys know. I talk about that a lot. And so I'm going to talk about kind of my presentation as I'll walk through a little bit of my Austin story with you guys, because it's also a town that is transformative. So this is my one of the 7 major projects I'm doing is called Weil Connect Mobile. So we have the Salesforce stack. We're using Marketing Cloud, Experience Cloud, Sales Cloud, and a lot of other tools. But specifically for our 50,000 volunteers and 10,000 staff, we have Salesforce. Well, Salesforce natively is just not something that a bunch of folks who are running around talking to high school kids are going to use. So we are building an overlay that is helping them to still keep track of lists and names, and we want volunteers to have access, but I don't want to have license fees for tens of thousands of people. So I'm just using this as an example for me to say, hey, I am trying to bring these modern enterprise tools into a nonprofit, but do it in a way that's comfortable and fun and energizing. You can see down there, second to last bullet, I want kind of these SMS and email journeys to be able to be launched from the app. They don't really need to know all the details of how we're going to get it done. They just need to trust that, okay, if I'm going to do this, this is the new donor journey. So they can so these local areas, we call them, or local chapters, they can opt into things. They can still feel like they have control, but they can also then have modern email marketing best practices take place. So you can see this balance I have to achieve between thinking through someone wants their own little control of their world, but also how are we going to do that at scale with enterprise. So this is, I also kind of think of it, the 1-minute notes and reminders there at the bottom, that we want people to be able to use this to write things down about the people they meet, the relationships they meet. And we all know how to do this in our digital life, but to help volunteers and staff do that. So that's one of the many things I'm building. I'm just going to use that as an example so you kind of know what I'm doing. Okay, so let's talk about digital transformation. This is the idea that every org's a tech org. This is the message I communicate over and over again, is yes, we're an 80-year-old, one-on-one, in-person relationship organization, but we're a tech organization. And so there's a reality that is, that you guys know this, but organizations need to really rethink what is it exactly that we're doing. Is it the same way that it's always been? And so I want to remind us that we're not here to digitize the old ways. We're actually here to transform these organizations, and that some of our very specific ways to do that with email can be, brought into the bigger story. So cast vision. So I would say that about any one of you as you think about casting vision for your organization. So I put my town there. Look at my town. This is my college days on the top and the town today. Austin, Texas has transformed every 20 years. It doubles since its founding. It's the only town in the world that's done that. Every 20 years since 1839, it's doubled. And it's continuing to do so. 2040, we'll see it again. So think about that as your organization. What if your organization had that kind of multiple effect? The only way to do that is to transform it, and we know, transform it digitally right now. And the way I think about that is that there's felt pains in the organization. People don't want to just do digital change because they're supposed to, right? It actually needs to be something that is a felt pain, that your solution is a remedy. It is a new way, yes, but the new way isn't always the best way. But there may be, I think of it as there's a challenge. It may be a challenge post-COVID, the whole service organization that you do, or that your product isn't relevant anymore. And so you need to think through, how are you going to use some of our tools to listen or to understand the organization that you're at. So digitally transform. And one of the fun ways I've done that is a couple organizations ago, I was in kind of hedge fund. And I was building all the digital marketing tools for a hedge fund. And very old school way to look at risk and evaluate assets. But we needed to digitally transform that. So I created a marketing department and a kind of a risk data analysis department. And it was fun to really get to communicate this idea of transformative thinking with my team. So I hired the talent to support me, and they each realized that, and some of them came from PwC or IBM, kind of these big organizations where, to be honest, they were a cog. They were doing a role, and sometimes you might feel that way, right? You're just doing your thing. You're a cog in the big, giant wheel of enterprise. But each of these folks realized their passion and how effective they were, that all 5 of my direct reports started companies after I left. So Chantam, Blake, Madison, Nicole, Clay. Pretty cool, if you think about it, that these industry kind of young professionals recognized that they actually had an angle, a passion, a vision for what they could do with their life, and in a digitally transformative way. So I don't say that to go start your own company, but I do say that to say that you can be an entrepreneur, or even as a vendor, you can help to support your clients to have vision for where they can go, and no matter that level, because that vision is contagious. And so be that contagious visionary. Win hearts and minds. So this is my school, the University of Texas at Austin. We finally made to the Sweet 16, and then we're taken out by Miami. But the point is that we want to win hearts and minds, and almost think of it like a campaign to be that change agent. And so I found that whatever the different folks are in your organization, there's those that are in your way, and there are those that will help you get there. And there are those that are your way up executives that have no idea what you're talking about, or kind of way down into the system. And so I wanted one thing I thought as a vendor, one of my pursuits was to find that pioneer in Dell. I was a vendor to Dell in one of my organizations, and so that pioneer. I basically made it my KPI to get her to be the employee of the year, for her big global department. And so that's me being a change agent in Dell, even though I was a vendor to it. Now Dell, you're like, well, they're digital. Well, no, they're still doing they were doing old, ridiculous ways too, that needed some pioneering on how to do demand generation and lead generation and social media in my case. I also want to think about the skeptics. So Eric, Morgan knows Eric. Eric is the skeptic. He's the kind of chief revenue officer at Young Life. And he, he basically is always the, yeah, right, just the skeptic. And so I made I basically made a KPI for him. I'm like, I'm going to get you 800,000 opt-ins. We had this list of dormant donors that we weren't really using very well, but they had engaged the organization recently. And so you guys know this, it's like, oh my gosh, it's just this depreciating value of this asset, if you will. And so that was my mission, is I'm gonna get these opt-ins for this guy that, they were there, they just weren't in the right place, basically. It's like moving them over to the right database, right? And, but to us, it's like no big deal. But to the organization, no one had done it. So I made that my goal. And so that has changed my relationship with this guy. He's now on my team, and he's the guy bringing the cash into the organization. So pretty fun to kind of go with a mission. And you can see that no matter your level, you can do that. You can think about that kind of influence you make. And so even for my evangelist, so 3 levels, kind of my junior is Erica. And so Erica is the product lead or the product manager for that app I showed you. And so we had to go get our $1.5 million in funding to get that done, get the C-suite approval for it. And I didn't go. I sent her, okay, because she's the truth teller. I'm just the BS guy, right? I just talk about it. She's actually going to run it, right? And so she had the real stories of the real plays. I call them impact plays, of how that app is going to be used and what a volunteer would do with them. Do with it, and it's not some computer mumbo jumbo to these guys. It's actually, a late 20s passionate young professional, and they ate it up, right? She was the evangelist, and we can all do that. And so I'd encourage you in your, give up your spot talking to the C-suite sometime, and let the truth teller out, let the evangelist out. And similarly, I would say that in the middle one, ask for the ball. If you are that young person, hey, I got the shot. Give me the ball. And be bold enough to ask for that. Because this is digital transformation that some of the new young ideas are that's what we need. We need that kind of innovation. And we need to adapt. So win the hearts and minds, and you do it with all those folks and kind of go after them one at a time, even if you're a vendor trying to change your clunky client. How's that? Let's be interactive. You agree? Yeah. Okay, right. Okay, so this is my Major League Soccer, Austin FC. We're starting to, kind of perform. And that's what I would say is that you got all this vision, and we've got all this hearts and minds. I got Eric, kind of okay. And then you got to do it. And we all know that, right? And that is hard. And it's kind of, you got to have like faith, like faith that you've maybe never done it before. And that's for me in all these organizations. I call it, you got to unleash all your influence, tenacity, smarts, and prayers, right? I'm in a faith journey organization, so I say it that way too, because this is incalculably risky to do this, to make commitments before you really know if you're going to do it. And it's never been done before. To really do what you want to do has never been, but you might have your competitor did it, or you might have your old job that you did it. But here and now in this world, whatever you're about to do or you're setting your sights up with that vision of what playing 3 chess moves ahead, what would it be like if that happened, if I got that data over to that system, or I connected these systems, or I got all the people really doing what they say they're going to do? Wow. So here are my 4 little thoughts for you. I call this ROI resolve. Okay, a lot of folks, we get all into our stuff, but we forget about the math. I'm an engineer by training, business guy, and the math is important because it's not just money math. I call it mission math because I'm in a mission too, right? But you're all on a mission. And that mission math is like, what if we could do this? This would transform our organization. This would make it, go places we never been. So think about doing the math to show that. And so there's a lot of assumptions in doing these math, but that's okay. Just show your assumptions. But I really would encourage you, I mean, we know this, marketing is math now. There's, what are we really doing but to show your work, to show that math, both in the calculus of a ROI of why we should invest this big tech budget or why we should take this program. I love the risk of you guys kind of sending less emails. That's a math problem that you actually can talk through. So ROI resolve. And the resolve means you're so believing that you're going to do it. You're almost crazy. It's almost magical thinking. But then also, if you can sync up objectives, this is what I found also, is that we all have our own silos of results, of objectives and things we're doing. And that's packed to that evangelism part, is that let's all pick a goal. All the functions, all the different departments, what are we going to do? So we have 50 camps across the country. And we don't have the volunteers we used to, kind of post-COVID malaise. So we're down like 500 volunteers for this summer, June 1st. It's coming fast. I need 500 people to spend a month of their summer at these Young Life camps, 20-year-olds, right? And so that's a goal. I'm like, we need 500 summer staff. That means I need about 700 applicants. And so we went after it. We set a goal. That's good. And then we synced up the objectives, and we're doing emails, and we're texts and follow-ups, and basically all the things with the goal in mind. And that's why I say products or solutions, not solutioning, or products, not projects. Like, well, I did my project. I checked my box. I got my 800,000 emails out. But really, did we remedy the pain? The pain of, for me, I need those 500 summer staff folks, or whatever it is. I need that holiday lift in revenue. But once you start to have that muscle built, that your organization is thinking about solutions and how digital can solve, now you're starting to build the flywheel, right? It's starting to go, and there's more and more trust, and your performance is going to become increasingly more successful. So burn the ships. This is that cut over. You guys feel that way about some of your projects? You got the old system and you got the new system. And to keep both of them running is crazy talk, right? Because you have all these different, you've got this lack of trust that you're really going to move somewhere. You're going to migrate a platform, or you're going to end of life an old system. But to actually say, no, we're cutting over, or where that's going to end on this day. And then you have everyone kind of coming together, and I call it fail fast, make mistakes, get messy, all that stuff. For most of us, we're not, rocket surgeons, or whatever we want to call it, right? That we're even Elon's blowing up his rockets, right? It's okay. So we can do things in digital that are, risky, and be okay with that. And be okay with your staff messing up and sending the email the wrong place or stuff. Obviously, there's laws, and we want to check our work, but there's also often too many folks are not willing to innovate, not willing to take the risk, okay? So do the performance. Austin City Limits is a cool festival. I'm using this as a metaphor for all the channels. Austin City Limits has, it was a TV show for 40 years, and then it has become a venue where they do the tapings in a cool place downtown, and it has now a ACL festival for the past 20 years when you all come to my town and hear great music, and it has a radio, ACL radio, where it plays all the cool stuff all year long. And so this is where I want you to think about internal marketing. Really, you're not only doing external marketing, but think about digitally transformational stuff that you can do inside your own organization. And for me, it's a big volunteer, 100,000 volunteers and 10,000 staff. I have a lot of persuading to do, and internally. And so think about how to talk about that internally. And so I'm using the story there. Use all the channels. And the channels may be all those, even your own tools like email marketing and texting and video and creative and events and all that. And to be careful to talk about the what and the why and not get into all the boring details. Because that's, I got that is the way to think about it. But instead it's like, hey, what if? How can we do this? How can we do this? I also want to say that this is where we need, I don't listen very well. You know the little recordings, Shift Paradigm is Morgan's company that's on the, one of my vendors. And you know, they tell me how much I talked on the call. It's like, I mean, because they laugh at it. He said it. It's like, oh, Scott, you talked 40% of the call, and your vendor is supposed to be telling you what to do. But I want you to think about that from your own standpoint. Is making sure you're listening, empathizing, hearing the objections, even if they're internally and you're not really the sales guy. You are the change agent, and there's going to always be resistance to change. You connect with that and the idea that we want to empathize with. There's a level of fear that's going on about changing things or about doing something new, and so we want to kind of address those fears, bring them out into the open, so we can inspire some of the things we want to do. I'll give you a story about Kim there on the last line, is that sometimes, you know, Chelsea, I was appreciating your kind of energy because I have that. But it can come out as being a bully too, right? Where I'm like, just get out of my way, you know, whatever word, and you know, I'm in the faith nonprofit now, so I have to be careful with my words because the F words in the hedge fund were quite flowing. But here I am, you know, having to get this bully out of my way. But sometimes that I'm the bully trying to persuade someone to thinking. And for my example with Kim, Kim was actually, she's a data scientist. She wanted to show all these folks this data, basically a dashboard. We were building a dashboard on the platforms so that these areas could understand their KPIs. Like, the KPIs were like, how many kids are you connected to? Or how many kids are going to your events? Or how many kids are signed up? These are all things that you're like, of course, they need metrics. But this is an organization that's never thought about metrics that way. Okay, so to me, she's putting all this data-informed decision-making, which is great. We would all love that. But it has to be messaged well, okay? Because they're looking at this as like, oh my gosh, Big Brother police here. Like, they're checking on everything. Do they want to know how often I, you know, call my wife during the middle of the day? I mean, all these things that are fear, right? So where I got in trouble with Kim is like, they're not ready for this level of policing. They're going to experience it as policing. So we need to be thoughtful about how we roll this out and do this kind of marketing I'm talking about. But I'm also being a bully about it, and it's like, well, it's my product. I'm not putting it on there. And that wasn't right. That was me being controlling and skipping steps, even in my communicating to her. Meaning, I'm like, I'm just not going to do it. Well, so I'm just saying that, hey, we're gonna mess up relationships too. It's not just about doing, you know, kind of some of our fail fast digital stuff. It's also our fail fast relational stuff. So I really have learned how to say I'm sorry, and like I was a bully, and I'm, you know, I truly want to reconnect here relationally because I believe what you're doing. I just want to encourage us on the process. So, you know, that's a little bit of my story, but I think that it's you got to be able to step back, even amid that that charge, And so that's my last slide, is this idea of being patient. So Formula One is in my town. We, the Drive to Survive it's the most attended Formula One in history, has been in Austin, Texas. Like 450,000 people come for this thing. But they get behind that pace car, Verstappen and Hamilton there, stuck, okay? And so I feel that way a lot. I'm stuck behind a freaking AMG Mercedes. It's going, but it's half the speed. And so how are we gonna do this? And so that's where I wanna just kind of remind you about the bossy boomers who are telling you that we haven't ever done it that way, or the lazy Z's, that's what I call them. These people that are like, I thought we've talked about this 3 times, and you still haven't done it. So there's this passion and compassion that is going to be part of your career, and you're pushing and you're pacing. And so there's the pace car. The elaborate is like, oh, right, I gotta talk to you about this again, and I gotta answer your questions. But collaborating is where it's really fun too, is now that you can kind of get out of sometimes your own department and recognize that there are those silos there because of fear reasons and because of, it's just a pain to talk to all those people. But when you get that collaboration, you're starting to see the success. And then Mars shots and molehills. So the molehills is like, oh my gosh, we got to talk about this stupid little thing again. But then also, if you kind of work through those, you can start to see things happen in your organization that are transformative. My nonprofit has a similar nonprofit just 10 miles up the road from headquarters that has doubled. So back to my doubling of my town, they've doubled in their donations from $500 million to $1 billion in 5 years, and they've done it with digital transformation. So I need to remind, that's my vision, if I'm honest. It was like, this organization could double. We could double the impact of what we do because of some of the digital transformational things we're talking about. And it's not crazy. They just did it down the road. And I think that you guys know this from your own experiences, is that these are transformative Mars shot things going on in your organization that you can lead, whether you're 28 or 68 or whatever it is in between, because of the opportunity you have in this transformative industry. So thank you for hanging out with me a little bit this morning. There's my LinkedIn QR code.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. Oh, hold on. All right, anybody, any questions for Scott as we wrap up? So I've gotten to see some of this, Scott. I would say, what do you think is the difference between a year ago, how you were interacting with people on the team a year ago versus today?
Yeah, well, there are a couple things. One is that there's some that performance level. There's actually some momentum that is built. There's some trust that's building, and it's taken a lot of patience to do that. The other aspect is there's funding. I had to kind of sell these, do the math. I had to do the math, okay, to get some of the funding or people to get work done. So that's also part of it. So I'm bringing up the patience level again. Being patient.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Scott.